Africa and everyone tuning in from other parts of the globe. It is with utmost delight that I talk to you alongside brilliant minds in the African fact-checking community about the dynamism of mis and disinformation related to the pandemic, rightly termed an infodemic, the rise and fall of certain topics throughout the cycle of COVID-19, what that says about human vulnerabilities and inclinations, and how some superhumans have devoted most of their time to responding to the menace that threatens to bring down societies. In essence, we will be speaking about the spread of COVID-19 misinformation, the trends and challenges. I am Ebele Oputa, and I work for the Premium Time Center for Investigative Journalism, specifically at its independent fact-checking project called Jubawa. Jubawa operates in 3 countries in the West African region, Nigeria, Ghana, and Sierra Leone. A disclaimer, my earlier mention of talk can be considered misleading because in truth, I will spend most of the time listening and only raising my head periodically to signal a change in the direction of the ship or retention of the previous course. This session promises to be riveting, not just because of the quality of the speakers and their combined expertise, but also because of their representative nature. Rabiu Alhassan is a journalist and fact checker from West Africa. Enock Nyariki is an editor from East Africa in an organization that operates in 12 African countries, while Nicola is a researcher from Southern Africa. And Rabiu Alhassan is the founder and managing editor of GhanaFact, and he has been able to build a successful organization in the complex ecosystem of disinformation in Ghana. And this has been a very interesting year for all of us, but especially Rabiu, because I'm most certain about that, and that's because him and his team, they've had to fact check a brutal wave of COVID-19 misinformation while combating political disinformation ahead of the Ghanaian elections. So my question to you is this. In the opening session of this conference, Jacques Powell, a foremost investigative journalist, while explaining his 10 guidelines for writing an investigative book, he said, "The human narrative is the key to what makes a readable investigative journalism book. It must not focus on facts or data." And this point is particularly important because the pandemic brought to fore the vulnerabilities and biases of humans. I would like to know, did you have to change your writing style? And please tell us, what trends did you notice that were particular to your region or country?
Thank you very much, Ebele, and it's a pleasure to be on the panel with you all, Enock, Nicola, and Ebele. So exactly the question you asked, we're thrown into the deep end as a fact-checking organization, fact-checking misinformation around the pandemic. And we were largely a new fact-checking organization. We've only got to be signatories of the International Fact-Checking Network some few months ago. So basically, as you asked, whether we changed our writing style basically to confront some of the misinformation and disinformation we encountered, and really what went into our efforts to try to curb the spread and weaponization of misinformation around the pandemic in Ghana. So I would try to highlight the trends and challenges and even the solutions that we came up with in dealing with the epidemic that came with the pandemic. So I'll start by giving an overview of what my presentation is going to be about. Basically, I'm going to look at some of the very key issues that came up with regards questions people wanted answers to in dealing with the pandemic. I think my presentation, yes. So I'm going to highlight some of the key questions that came up. The COVID-19 was relatively a new virus, and the World Health Organization did state that answers were being sought for lots of questions, and through these questions, it dovetailed into the kinds of misinformation and forms of misinformation we observed, from the sophisticated changes to HTML codes, or from the front end of credible websites to tweak their headlines, to simple errors we witnessed from credible organizations trying to communicate data with regards to the number of people who had been confirmed to have contracted the coronavirus, the number of deaths that had been recorded. to information gap we witnessed, where the credible organizations, health authorities were expecting to relay information to the public, sometimes when they were not accurate. That gap allowed for people to chime in and spread misinformation. Then we would come to where some African countries, or for us here in Ghana, it looks like we've reversed some of the restrictions that were imposed earlier, and that has meant that we have accepted that we are going to be living with the virus. And what that has meant for the questions that people were asking earlier, reinforcing their biases, as you mentioned, Ebele. Basically, people are asking whether even the virus is still real. So some of the work that we have done has become very crucial in trying to remind people that COVID-19 still exists and they would have to be wary, observe all the social distancing and all the protocols that have been mentioned. So let me zoom in straight to the first leg of the issues I would want to mention, which is the seeking for answers. Basically, relatively new COVID-19 hits the world, and people were wondering, where is this virus coming from? And this meant that in seeking for answers for this question, it meant people would want to try to give answers if even they don't have that, which meant misinformers and disinformers took opportunity to put out information in relation to it coming from maybe some lab somewhere in China. It's being cooked up somewhere in a lab in China. Some suggesting that beyond that, it could be possible that some African countries who were not recording cases of COVID-19 was because of how hot the weather was. And this also is about why was Sub-Saharan Africa being late in recording cases of COVID-19. Nigeria being the first in Sub-Saharan Africa in late February to record a case. Some were particularly pointing to that, where they were quite questioning why Africa was being late in recording cases of COVID-19. Others were also particular with why whether Africans could actually survive this, because there were concerns that whilst COVID-19 was wreaking havoc in other parts of the world, the weak health infrastructure in most African countries would mean that Africans would be hit hard by this. Now that we've seen it unfold and evolve, and Africans are not actually dying as compared to other parts of the world, even though one death is too many, people are wondering, so why are Africans not dying from COVID-19? And in asking all these questions, it plays into the hands of misinformers and disinformers, and they are churning out misinformation, basically trying to answer these. Now, because of this, also people are asking, could there possibly be herbal cures on the African continent to help deal with COVID-19? And this played into lots of the things we flagged, which would mean, if you look at some of the things we flagged as misinformation, people were spreading issues about alcohol helping curb coronavirus. If you drink alcohol, it can help deal with coronavirus. I just suggested if you chew raw onion, it can help deal with it. Others were suggesting some concoctions could help deal with coronavirus on the African continent. Now, even before Ghana recorded a case of COVID-19 on March 12, it was formally announced on March 12, we saw a screenshot of a credible website like the BBC website, and it had a headline saying Ghana had recorded a case, even though that was not the case. And in our collaboration with people to help flag misinformation, we spoke to some digital analysts who explained to us the trend where people take advantage, visit credible media websites, and they tweak the headlines of the websites by modifying the HTML codes of these websites, basically taking screenshots of that and sending it. That shows you how sophisticated some disinformers could be. Beyond that, also, there was where we had a situation where we had to correct an information that was put out by the West Africa Health Organization, basically on the number of COVID-19 cases that were being reported in Ghana and the number of recoveries, which was more or less a simple error with regards to the numbers. So the misinformation types we saw ranged from sophisticated changes to HTML codes of websites, front end of websites to tweak the headlines, to simple errors from credible organizations that were supposed to put out information. Now, we also saw doctored, misrepresented videos and pictures, mostly going viral on WhatsApp. Also, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram would not be left out. And in some of these circumstances, we saw actually influencers chime into the debate and make pronouncements of some of these things. And, you know, for people who have mass following on social media, anytime they post stuff, it reaches a wider audience. Now, we also heard of the conspiracy theories and unproven cures, as I alluded to. For the conspiracy theories, we heard of how people suggested 5G had a role in the COVID-19 cases that we were experiencing around the world. Others suggesting that, as I said, the COVID-19 was something that was cooked up in some lab somewhere. And in all of this, even though we experienced it locally in Ghana, it was something we also saw other fact-checking organizations in other parts of the world also flag as misinformation, as disinformation. So it looked like there was a thread that was running through some of these things that were going viral on social and traditional media. Now, I'll zoom into another leg of the discussion, which basically had to do with information and how it was being managed. In Ghana, even though we were maybe some of the late countries that recorded cases of coronavirus, it seems the authorities learned from the epidemic that was being spread in other countries and that had been highlighted by the World Health Organization. So a few days after recorded cases of coronavirus, the Ghana Health Service put together a website that was supposed to update citizens on data with regards to confirmed cases of coronavirus and how government was managing with issues around COVID-19. Now, there was also the availability of health authorities to help curb the epidemic that had come with the pandemic. So anytime we chanced on any misinformation, we knew we had a reliable person at the Ghana Health Service, at the Ghana Medical Association, or even the World Health Organization communications unit in country and in the sub-region to help us deal promptly with the information we wanted to put out, the credible information we wanted to put out. But this also led to one key issue of information gap. So anytime there was a gap in relaying credible information to the public, we saw how actively misinformers and people leveraged on the gap to put out some narrative. Mostly it ended up to be not true. So basically in Ghana, a specific example was when we saw that the Ghana Health Service website, which was dedicated to update citizens on the COVID-19 pandemic in the country, basically went down briefly. And in that brief moment, some few hours, I think about 3 hours, it went down because it was going to be updated. We saw on Twitter how people kind of championed a narrative saying that the government was wiping credible information on the spread of COVID-19 in the country off the website. Basically, government was massaging data on the website. And we had to step in to do more or less a fact sheet detailing what had happened and getting perspectives from the Ghana Health Service as to what they were really doing to the website in terms of updating it to ensure people could easily visit the website and consume more credible information. So that was it. And now we are having to deal with kind of an interesting development where there is a kind of pandemic fatigue. People are getting exhausted with all the bombardment with information around COVID-19 and how you can protect yourself. We are seeing a reversal of COVID-19 restrictions from the authorities. Ghana largely has reversed most of the restrictions apart from the closure of the land and I think sea borders. The flights are now allowed into the country. Now with this has also come our preparation towards our elections in some few months, I think in December. With this has come the challenge where people are questioning whether even the virus is real, because we are seeing political parties organize rallies And with careless abandon, people are participating in these rallies without social distancing, without wearing of face masks. So it has even become more crucial now, the work we did some few months ago and the work we continue to do in terms of tackling misinformation around the pandemic, that through collaborations with traditional media platforms in a network we built, so we can leverage on not just reaching people online, but also offline. We are encouraging traditional media platforms to re-echo some of the fact checks that we've put out on their traditional media platform, that is radio and TV. From data, we know that about 10 million Ghanaians are connected to the internet out of a population of 30 million. So a large majority of the population consume news via radio and TV. So through this collaboration, we can reach people both online and offline. And I should also mention that we were part of the IFCN COVID-19 Alliance that brought together more than 100 fact-checking organizations around the world to help tackle misinformation around the pandemic. We've managed as an alliance to publish more than 5,000 reports, and all this can be found in a database. So anybody who chances on any misinformation can visit this database and get all the corrected, verified information that you need to deal with or manage the way you work around the pandemic. And as I mentioned, the Ghana Fact Checking Network is bringing together more than 30 traditional media platforms, including radio and TV, to republish our work and ensure that citizens get credible information around the pandemic.
Thank you, Rabiu. You had so many insightful things in your session.